Hi, welcome to another episode of Covering Your Health with Evelyn Erives, presented by IEHP. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Here we are yet again. We're on Zoom today, and for a very important reason we'll be getting to very shortly. I can't believe it. Since late last year, we have been talking about so many important topics, engaging topics. And I've been learning so much about different things, whether it be about healthcare, about different disorders. And today is no different. We are going to have a really fun and very candid conversation with a special duo, a mother and a son named Jill and Caden Henderson. They are good friends of mine, and I'm so excited that I get to have them on the podcast. They're going to talk about navigating Caden's celiac disease. They're going to talk about his diagnosis, what they've learned, and how they are utilizing their social media to get the word out and really, to just engage with people and maybe even a community that also is dealing with celiac. So what is celiac disease? According to Celiac Disease Foundation, celiac disease is a serious autoimmune disease that occurs in genetically predisposed people where the ingestion of gluten leads to damage in the small intestine. It's estimated that 1 in 100 people worldwide affected by the disease, but really only 30% ever properly get diagnosed, which is just what? Crazy, right? And there's no pharmaceutical treatments or cures for celiac. So we're just scratching the surface. We're going to dive into this topic, and I can't wait to get started.
Welcome to Covering Your Health, a wellness podcast dedicated to covering all areas of living a healthy and happy lifestyle. From healthy hearts to understanding health plans and everything in between, each episode will provide you with a better understanding of managing your health, preventative care, and staying on the right path for your family's wellness journey. The Covering Your Health podcast is presented by IEHP. Now, your host, Evelyn Erives.
Well, welcome, Jill and Caden. Hi, how are you?
Hi. Thank you for having us.
I'm so excited. So I have known both of you guys for quite some time now.
Oh, yeah.
It's so exciting to get to have you on the podcast. What I will say is, though, it's kind of a bummer why we have to have you on the podcast. It doesn't,
Agreed.
it doesn't need to take a disease for us to get together. But it is nice to always see your faces. So let's get started. Let's educate some people about, well, really what's going on in your lives. Let's start first with both of you, Jill and Caden. Tell us about yourselves. What are you into? Where are you from? Where do you live in the IE? All the things.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so we live in Redlands, California. And pretty much a lot of my life is just sports and stuff like that. I want to be a sports broadcaster when I grow up, so I do a lot of stuff involving that. I also am in college, about to enter my sophomore year. So pretty much those two things are a lot of what I do. Yeah.
And I just spend all my time driving Caden to really cool sports things. It's sad that he's older now. Pretty soon he won't need me. I work in the nonprofit space, and so that was one of the reasons that inspired Caden to do a lot of work for the hospitals. Over $20,000 he's collected from Loma Linda University Children's Hospital, and the teddy bear drive and stuff he's done. So it's been really neat to be on that journey with him.
You and I have a lot of that in common, which is super fun. Because you've worked in that space for a long time. I've volunteered in that space for a long time, and it rubs off on the family, and that is so cool. So We'll talk more about that, because I do want to talk a lot about the teddy bear drive and get into all of that. But let's get into the nitty gritty of why you're here. We want to talk about celiac disease. There's a lot unknown about it. Caden, can you tell us a little bit about like your diagnosis, how much of a relief it was when they finally figured out what was going on with you? Tell us the whole story.
Yeah, so I had a lot of stomach problems like growing up, and it especially kind of got at its worst when I was in about like sixth grade, and I had to be admitted into the hospital for a week or so. And back then, they took a lot of blood tests with me and actually did a test for celiac disease, but it came back as like unknown or something. Inconclusive, yeah. So they didn't know. So we go on a couple of years. The stomach issues died down a little, but they're still kind of lingering and stuff like that. And so eventually, we find ourselves back at the doctor. We're like, hey, these are my symptoms. I've been struggling with stomach issues, stuff like that. They're okay. Let's have you do some blood work. So then we did the blood work again, and the test came back for celiac disease as positive.
Mm.
So and that was 2.5 years,
About
yeah, about 2.5 years ago. So it was honestly kind of surprising because I had gone my whole life and we'd already tested for it and we didn't know I had it. So to find out and at least know that I knew what the issues were and it wasn't unknown, because it's scary when it's happening and you don't know what it is or what it could be.
Oh, yeah.
It definitely was a relief. And then immediately once we got that diagnosis, we talked to the doctors, of course, and dietitians and stuff like that to set up my diet, and that's kind of what we've been doing these past couple of years.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
really interesting. What I didn't know about celiac disease till Caden's diagnosis is that you and I, Evelyn, could have the gene right now, and we
Mm.
just don't know. And then there's a triggering event. It could even be something, it's my understanding, it could be something like a pregnancy. For example, Caden's hospitalization, what was happening with him at that time may have activated it, making the test inconclusive. And that's why it still took us a few years down the road to figure that out. So it's really tricky because it's very normal to get diagnosed later in life, but the longer you go having it and continue to eat gluten is extremely dangerous for your body.
Wow. I have a friend who actually kind of had a similar situation, but hers wasn't triggered till she was older, till she was in
Right.
her 30s. And then that at that point, it was an issue within her like stomach lining and then her intestines and stuff, so which is just so wild. You would think that they would be able to test that so early or find that gene, right? Like, okay, well, do you have that gene, right? Are there therapies or any of that kind of stuff where they can test you to see if you have the gene?
Testing is possible. There's no sort of treatment. There's no sort of way to avoid it getting active. So I was tested for celiac with a blood test, and so was Caden's dad. They recommend when one family member gets diagnosed, the immediate family immediately also go and get tested because it's very dangerous if you have like silent celiac and you're not presenting with the symptoms that Caden had. Everyone's case is kind of a little different, which is what makes it so hard to diagnose. So I could have had silent celiac and just been like, I feel tired all the time. Well, don't we all? And not known that it was
Right.
the gluten that was still doing something to my body. So it's hard, but you can do the test. I didn't have it. His dad didn't have it. It's not. I think you'd have to pay. It's like outside the scope of what normal insurance does to find out if you have the gene. And I don't want to know if it was my fault or not. So we won't be doing that. I just always tell Kaden,
That's
it's your dad. It's your dad.
that's hilarious. I'm not going to take the blame for this one. That's
No,
it. That's
not
just
don't
it.
have to.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about those symptoms, right? I know this week you actually had sort of like I don't what do they call it? What do they call it when you maybe had a contamination or some sort of thing?
I mean,
What do you
sometimes
call
it's
it?
called getting glutened or
That's like the slang.
contaminated.
Getting
Yeah,
Yeah.
gluten.
just
I was
anything like
glutened.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that's I got glutened. Oh, like
yeah.
that sounds so
And
crazy.
you forget other people don't know. So I was at a family event, like, oh, he got gluten. They would just walk away and be
Sometimes
like,
just say
what?
he's sick and it's just easier. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. What does it feel like to get glutened when you're in this state?
It's basically the stomach flu, but like
Or
way worse.
Mm.
Like obviously your stomach hurts, and you feel really tired. Some people I know like are on the verge of like passing out sometimes when they have it and stuff like that. So it really just kind of forces you to just stay inside and just have whatever needs to happen for you to get better.
Oh,
But yeah, it really just kind of stops your day, and you got to live your life around it. When you do get gluten.
and
oh,
unlike the stomach flu, you don't really want to suppress the symptoms. You have to kind of let your body do whatever it has to do to get through it. I know some people with celiac take like activated charcoal. We haven't tried that. There's a lot of sort of controversy once you're in that community of
mm-hmm.
what's appropriate to do. With Caden, it's just rest, stay super hydrated, like a brat kind of diet. But the brat diet involves bread, and he can have that so, as much as we can, and try to just wait through it. But it's interesting, it can be so different. When he first went gluten free, he had an attack after a basketball game, which was such severe pain in his stomach, and he has a high threshold for pain. I thought I was gonna have to take him to the doctor. There
Oh,
was another day when he did pass out, and that night he woke up nauseous, and it was almost like, and I could say with confidence he was not drinking. It was almost like he was drunk because he was so disoriented. And people get brain
oh,
fog, and some people are like, "Oh, I get a migraine." So it really runs the gamut. But the longer you spend on a gluten-free diet, when a mistake is made, the worse the reaction is because your body is so starting to heal. So when that gluten comes in, your body just absolutely tries to reject it and like fights against you basically.
Oh my gosh. It's like almost like getting sick when you build up antibodies, right? Like after COVID, nobody had been around anybody. And then all of a sudden we all go back
Right.
We're
outside.
all sick. Yeah,
Everybody is just floored. We're all sick again. Wow.
exactly.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I mean, that sounds horrible. And I'm so sorry that you've had to even go through that. And I know you had a little bit of an episode this week too. And I like all I kept thinking was, let's push farther. Let's let him have all of the time that he needs. Oh,
I think
hope
that's the
he's
most heartbreaking part is it's hard to watch your kids suffer or be sick, but it's the
yeah.
life social opportunity impact. Like we're so excited to come in studio and get to see you and
Yeah.
little things like that. We try to be so careful when we have something big coming. But stuff happens. And so sometimes it impacts his life in a way that kind of breaks my heart. But we just do the best we can. We get better every year. We get a little smarter.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk too more about like how you've had to make adjustments in like everything in just a few. I wanted to talk a little bit about how you've been utilizing your social media. So you have been on your platform sharing your stories. You guys are both very public. I've known you both to be very public people for a very long time. Even Caden, when you were very, very young, you've been very public, which has always been so fun to watch you, grow up. I feel like I've watched you grow up. Um, so tell me, like, why do you feel it's necessary to share this particular story? Because it's always been something else that I've always followed from you both, different types of stories. And now it's this journey.
Yeah, well, I think what's interesting is, well, first of all, when I found out I had celiac disease, I didn't know what it was. Like we
Yeah.
had to get the big form, the papers that explained it to us. So immediately, what we did is we went and found other people who talk about celiac disease. People have whole Instagram accounts where they suggest food, and they kind of surround that. So learning that it wasn't that well known that there are other people doing it, that makes us want to do it because we know the pain of it. We know it's not fun. So if we're able to get people to spread awareness about it, so that way, hey, like if there's one person who's like, oh, I kind of have these symptoms, I kind of experience this, if that can help them and maybe they can help ease the pain and not go through it and get diagnosed, then that'd help. So just to spread awareness about something because it's really not like as talked about as other diseases, just because it's not as common.
Yeah.
So it's all about just spreading awareness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so frustrating to go through life with celiac and not be able to find restaurants that are gluten free, or people would tell me it wasn't real when I told them Caden's diagnosis. They're like, "Well, you seem a little extreme with the whole cross contamination thing," and I'm like, "Yeah, I don't want him to die early, sorry." So the right the fight you have to fight against even sometimes like family members and friends being like, "No, guys, this is real. You can't just have a little." He can't just come over and use your pots and pans. You do seem crazy. When they told me what I had to do, I was like, that seems extreme, guys. And then once I saw it in practice and saw the difference a tiny mistake can make, so I thought if you talk about it more and you educate people on it more, it would just make anyone, including our lives, easier for someone with celiac. But it's just hard to find options of places to eat out. And there are times we all prefer to, home cook our food. That's great. But you're on the go sometimes and you need
Yeah.
a safe place where you can eat or you want to go on vacation or travel. And we feel so limited. So the more you talk about it, the more I feel like, so if you're listening, Inland Empire, we need a gluten-free
I
restaurant.
think, yeah, I think especially too, a lot of times it gets confused with just having like a gluten-free diet or
Yeah.
just being gluten-free. And there's no
Trendy.
stereotype with those people that are gluten-free. It's like, oh, you pick on everything, you don't eat this, you don't eat that, it's too much. And then there's celiac disease, which is you have to do it. You're not choosing to do it to be healthy or whatever.
So true.
So I think that's something that also people kind of get mixed together. And that's a big reason why I think restaurants too, like there aren't as many. Some restaurants have gluten-free choices, but they're not celiac friendly
They're
because of cross
gluten-friendly,
contamination.
they
Yeah,
call
gluten
it.
Yeah.
friendly, I should say. So a lot of it is just like blurred and trying to separate what gluten diet is and actual celiac diet and the
Right.
differences in sickness and stuff like that.
Mhm.
No, it's so funny. I went to a restaurant and I asked, like, hey, do you have like a gluten-free pizza or something like that? And they gave me the like weirdest look. And I thought, how terrible. Like, I know I'm sensitive to gluten, but I don't have celiac. So I know, like, what that has to feel horrible when you're going somewhere and you're like, hey, I really can't have that. Like, I just know
Yeah.
I can't have that.
Evelyn, the amount of money I've spent in tipping people, because
Oh.
first of all, if you order something
Oh.
that's gluten free, it is a substantial price difference. It's going to be more expensive in a restaurant in a grocery store. But then when we go, like, say, for example, we're to go to Chipotle, I would say, hi, my son has, it's just easier to say gluten allergy than try to explain the whole thing. So like, my son has celiac gluten allergy. I need you to take your gloves off, wash your hands, put new gloves on, be the only person who handles the food, put the lid on. And there's a line of people behind you. It's not a comfortable feeling. And I want Caden to feel empowered and comfortable, but it's also hard to just walk up and not apologize to the person, apologize to everyone behind you. You feel like you're walking this fine line. We've never had a negative experience, honestly,
Yeah.
but I'm just like waiting for it to happen. Like,
I
here's money. Thank you.
I will give you all the money. Please make this easy on me. So, okay, I mean, I think we kind of covered a little bit of this, but what are some more misconceptions you've learned about celiacs that maybe even surprised you?
That it's fake. I mean,
No.
that's
Yeah,
a
that's the big one,
misconception.
right?
That is fake. As soon as Caden was diagnosed, the first piece of advice that the doctor gave me was, one, to join support groups immediately, because it is so different for every single person.
Yeah.
That share of information has been beautiful. But he said you have to get rid of all your pots and pans, because there's scratches in most pots and pans that you've had over the years, and the gluten can live inside them, which really made me question how clean our dishes are.
Right?
It's that crazy. Now, I've heard some people who are not experts, who are not doctors, who are just social media influencers in the celiac space say, oh, you don't need to do that. But you can't throw someone gluten-free and use the pots and pans and they're still getting sick. You won't know if you're doing it right. You won't know if you, so you can't make those risks. I would say the misconception is people don't understand how expensive it is to have celiac disease. The food is so expensive. And the other thing that surprised me, which really blew my mind, you are like 5 times more likely to develop a second autoimmune disorder.
Oh, wow.
You are more likely to develop more food allergies. In Caden's case, he now can't have dairy or oats. So we're slowly marking off all the food in the world.
Oh, no.
Caden can
What
eat.
can you eat?
Fruit.
Yeah, it's quicker to name things I can than I can't. Yeah.
You're like all the fruit, all the veggies, all the fruit. That's it.
Right. You can't see him, but he's a skinny guy. If he stood up, you'd understand.
Oh my gosh, that sounds horrible. Like, I don't even know how else to say that. That sounds horrible. But
It is. It is. He's a trooper, but it's rough.
I was just gonna say, you are so positive, Kaden, because you're like laughing about it and you're like, well, this is
Yeah.
do.
I mean, yeah. I mean, like the first time, like when I got gluten, like that was kind of scary because I didn't know what it was gonna be. But now, like obviously, I don't want to get sick. It's not fun. I wouldn't choose to. But now I'm like, okay, I know this is going to happen. Is it frustrating? Is it annoying? Would I have to be doing something else? Yes. But I know 3-4 days, like I'm gonna be okay. I can move on with my day. I survived it. You know, however many more times I can do it. So eventually, you kind of just get used to it. And I didn't really have trouble accepting that I had it. You know, like yeah, I miss some food occasionally, but I'm just like you just got to go with it. You can't,
Right.
have it stop your life because then you're letting it win at some point. So I think eventually you just kind of get used to it and just kind of.
And it's just nice to have answers. Once
Yeah,
we had an
that
answer,
too.
because the other thing is, it affects your teeth. It affects like the color of your teeth and if they're healthy or not. So when Caden was little and growing up, I would get I feel like I was doing something wrong. Like I knew that Caden was eating healthy. I knew he brushed his teeth, but there are all these things that now make sense but didn't before. So having answers, even if you don't like them, is better than not having any. But it's all about perspective. People have cancer and are terminally ill, and this is not fun. And if Caden didn't go gluten free, he would be way more likely to get cancer. We understand that, but there's illnesses out there, especially when we're in the hospital, we saw where people are in so much worse shape and are really suffering. So do I love it? No. Am I incredibly grateful every day that I get up that it's an autoimmune thing that we can control and that it's not life threatening? That's all that matters. So there's days we get down about it, but at the end of the day, you have to put it in perspective. Caden's overall healthy and around. So that's all I care about.
Yeah, no, thank God. Of course. Yeah. And that's good. Perspective is everything. Like it really, really is. I think about days I have at work sometimes where I'm like, I'm so exhausted. My brain is fried, but I love what I do. It's okay. Like I could be doing something way worse. I could be,
Right.
and that's a way different perspective on it, but it's not a
No,
disease.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
I
it's
learned
those
that,
kind
yeah.
of things. You have to have a positive look on things to get through, to really get
Yeah.
through anything. So with celiac, explain to me, because I know you guys have probably learned a whole lot now through going through this. What is it exactly? So we know it's a gluten allergy. It affects your intestine though, right? So what is it that could potentially get to a cancer situation? What is something eating at it? What is happening?
So it's technically an autoimmune disorder and not at all an allergy. Caden did an allergy test and he's not allergic to gluten, which just made us mad.
What?
Yeah. No, the sling for when we go out to eat, gluten allergy, because it's just too much. And the cross contamination. You just say those
Yeah.
because it's so easy. You know, touch one thing of gluten, touch another, he's gonna get sick. So I don't understand the cancer connection. I don't know if you do either.
No, not particularly.
That's just one of the first things the doctors told us that I know. Caden's very mature and was going to do the diet anyway, but was very like, oh, we have to take this serious. But I do know what happens when you eat the gluten and you have it. It's the villi and like the lining of your intestines should look like fingers. And Caden's was essentially like blunted and had very little like bumps in between. And then you can't absorb nutrients. And so Caden's was, I mean, his markers were so high. And he, in theory, were like, hey, Caden's just a kid with stomach problems. For a while, is just what I was going with until it got worse because I had seen doctors. He'd been to the hospital. Like, I wasn't getting anywhere other than he has a sensitive stomach. I'm a bad cook. I don't know. So at Caden's point, I mean, we didn't see, there's no like specific test, but it was obvious by the color of his skin. I mean, his skin like actually improved itself. It's just your body almost starts to attack itself. And so first it starts in the villi and it's your stomach. And then in Caden's case, it went to teeth, it went to how much energy he had. And I love Caden. He's always been delightful, but he is in such a better mood since he went gluten-free. But he thought it was normal to feel that way. He didn't know any different. He thought I was walking around with my stomach feeling like that all the time, where I was feeling nothing. So it's just really interesting, the science of it, how that one little ingredient can basically turn your whole body against yourself.
So I think because I have a friend who actually has celiac that I even know anything about it. When I was so like, wait, what do you have? And her stomach would bloat. And I mean, like literally, I watched her I'll tell a silly story. We went to a Waffle House. Okay. And she had already been diagnosed. Okay. But she really wanted to have what we were having. She didn't have anything gluten in it, but that is like king contamination.
Yeah, there's no safe way to do that.
There's no Waffle House. You watch them prepare the food. So she made, she said, okay, well, I have an allergy. And they're like, okay. We're in the South. I'm sure, they're like, sure. She eats, she's so happy with her food. We start to leave and instantly, she was sick. And it was like, get her back to the hotel. We were at a conference. We had like run her across the street to get into a restroom and then get her to her room. And oh my God, it was horrible. And I couldn't help it. Like we kind of laughed because we were like, you knew what you were doing. You knew
that was a weird choice.
Yeah. Never do that.
I mean, we joke about it now too with her. Like, remember that one time you had to have Waffle House? And she just laughs. She goes, I don't know why I did that. Like it just looked good. It smelled good. I had to have it.
I get it. Caden has amazing willpower, but I wouldn't last 2 seconds. I'd be like, this cookie looks good from Panera. I'm gonna eat it, get sick later.
How do you do it? You are Superman. Like for real. That is like crazy. So she was telling me about the intestinal, with, I think, what did you call it? What did you call it? The villi. So she was telling me hers was gone. And she's in her 30s. So, well, at that time in her 30s. So she was like, when she was diagnosed, it was already at that point where it was completely gone and it was eating into her actual intestine. And so that's when they told her, this is when you get cancer. Because what ends up happening is you get intestinal cancer because it's just constantly being eaten at, and then the antibodies and like all these other little things that happen. And I'm not a doctor, so I don't want to go say anything else further. Yeah. I'm like, you get the point. But anyway, when it gets to that point, that's when you get to a super duper risky place. That's why you have to find this out as early as humanly possible. And I know that there's many doctors out there that don't even want to test you for it. You could be going in with stomach problems, and they're just kind of like, no, it's not that. No, it's not that. And I think that's another thing. You have to find the right doctor, and you have to find a doctor that will advocate for you. How was that experience for you?
Terrible.
Yeah, so leading up to that first, or well, not first, when I was in the hospital, obviously the stomach issues were there, and we got like so many different diagnoses. It was like stomach migraines was one of
Yeah.
them.
Oh my.
Just like, do
Eat
this,
better.
do that. Yeah, basic stuff. And that was, yeah, we had like a couple doctors that we went to the emergency room a couple times. It was never brought up. It wasn't until, I don't even think it was brought up in the hospital. I think they just so happened to test me for it as part of it. Yeah, but they didn't really bring it up. It wasn't until like probably I don't know, like for their big overall doctor
We had
that's
to
seen
change
it.
doctors.
Yeah. And they finally got to it. But it's just crazy. And I think that just shows how, for whatever they don't want to test, but also it's just not like the first thing people think of, which is why it can last so long. And
Mm-hmm.
luckily we got it at my age, which I was still, pretty young.
Yeah.
Obviously it would have been nice to get it when I was in sixth grade at high school, sure, but at least eventually we got it, and we didn't get to where it was doing like, it was obviously doing damage. It was doing like cancer level.
I mean, it just
Damage,
really comes down to, I never had an experience like that before as a parent, to any parent who's listening or watching, advocating for your child, because there was a point where I was in the emergency room, like essentially screaming. And this was a different situation. Is it tied to the celiac? Probably. But we kept going to the doctor. We went so many times, I won't name the healthcare provider, that before I said to my parents after I got out of the hospital, I'm going to write a letter and be like, I want a refund for all the time. We went to the same urgent care twice in one weekend, one time.
Oh my
God.
God.
They refunded my money before I could send the letter. And I'm like, I wanted to write that letter, but I'll take the cash. Because it was a gross misdiagnosis situation. So shortly after that, we changed to a different pediatrician, and it was during COVID. So it was a little hard. So I'm like, hey, Caden's experiencing this, try this. Because they weren't letting us go into the doctor's office. There wasn't anything against this particular doctor. And she was the first one to say, have you tested for celiac? And I was like, no, I don't know what that is. And she goes, well, it says here you did at the hospital, and it was inconclusive. And so there's another, maybe someone should have, I'm no doctor, but
let's figure that out. Yeah. Inconclusive means let's try again.
Right. So I just feel like I love Caden so much, and I work so hard to be a really diligent, caring parent. And, I like to go to McDonald's. We don't not have fun with food. Well, we don't have any fun with food now, but we used to. And so I just felt so bad for so long, and like I wasn't doing enough. And so I would say, if your kid has anything weird going on with them, like, you write it all down. There are things that now I realize I could have said that were connected that might have made it trigger in someone's head, because you can't know every illness. You're just a parent.
No.
So it's okay to advocate. It's okay to make appointments. It's okay to say, no, I need more, because that's what finally got us, a new doctor, and being really forthcoming with her, really oversharing. And I mean, oversharing. That's what got us to the diagnosis.
You literally have to. And I think that's where honesty is the best policy, right? It's with your doctor. You don't go to the doctor and be like, I mean, I'm okay, but no, look, it is volatile what is happening in my stomach right now. It is volatile what is happening in the restroom right now. Like, you have to tell them the truth. So I feel like this podcast name, like almost every episode that we have done of the Covering Your Health podcast has been about advocating for yourself. So I feel like I'm going to at some point have to change the whole name, because it's like Advocate for Yourself podcast. Like, it's because it's true, or it's take somebody with you who will advocate for you if you can't, right? Yeah. And in this case, you had your mom, which is like, thank God, right? And thank God your mom was listening to you and understood and seen this process and all of that. So let's talk about Loma Linda University Children's Hospital, all that really great work that you've been doing. I have watched you do a lot of this work. I've supported it on the radio. I've been so excited about talking about it every time you do this. Let's talk about the impact that the hospital had on you and your diagnosis, and then why you felt like it was the right thing to do to support the kids there too.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, I was sent to the hospital for about 3 or 4 days for a stomach issue, which we now know may have been linked to celiac and all that, so it all connects. And when I was there, I had a teddy bear with me to kind of comfort me. My mom grabbed it like last minute before we went, because we went to the ER like 2 or 3 times, but this time she was like, "We're definitely gonna go to the hospital." Like, yeah, he's going to the hospital. So she brought a teddy bear with me. And it was kind of just served as an icebreaker. Like, nurses would make jokes about it, like, "Oh, does the bear want an IV? What's the bear's name? Where'd you get him?" Stuff like that. And so obviously it was not fun in the hospital. But, those little moments kind of helped kind of break it up. And then while we were there, we also had this like Wii gaming console. And
Well, the hospital.
yeah, the hospital. Yeah, we didn't bring it with us. Yeah,
I'm not that well
yeah.
prepared.
And at one point, we like I wasn't playing with it, I was a little busy, being sick. And we gave it to the people next to us, and the nurse was like, "Wow, you gave that away? Like, we don't have like any more of those. Like, not everyone gets one or whatever." So when we got out of the hospital, like in the next couple of days, we were like, "How can we give back?" Because while we were there, we saw kids who were going through much, much worse cancer, stuff like that. It's a big reason we, like you said, put perspective on celiac disease. So we just wanted to help them out. So first we started with going back to the Wii stuff like that. We wanted to raise money for that so they could have more and hopefully more kids could have it because it really is a great distraction. I mean,
Oh,
video games, great
yeah,
distraction, very fun.
for
So
sure.
we did that. We raised money for that, and then we talked to them about maybe doing something with a bear drive because we wanted to, instead of asking people for money all the time, have something a little more that you have more of an attachment to and buying a bear and stuff like that.
And something the kids could
Yeah, something they could actually,
keep.
and you could, you keep it after the hospital, and there's your memory of, I got through this, whatever it may be, like the bear is for me. So we started that, and since 2016, we've been able to collect over 1,300 bears, is it now? 1,300 bears and $20,000 to the hospital. So it's all been crazy. We appreciate the community support that it's been, and again, it's so crazy how it all came from being in the hospital and probably the celiac disease. So
Yeah.
everything happens for a reason, I guess. So it's just crazy how it all has led to this.
That's so cool. It really is such an amazing thing. Not everybody gives back. You know what I mean? Not everybody, and not everybody can, but
Yeah.
it's
Right.
so cool that you and in your young age, like went home and was like, how do we fix that situation? Like, let's make sure they have more of this. So every kid there can have a fun thing to do and a good distraction. Such a sweet thing. You're special. Like you're a special kid, Kate. And
Thank
like,
you.
I mean, I know people have told you that, but you really, really are. And it's not normal. Like I will tell you, not every kid thinks this way, and that is, I think, to a lot of credit to your mom too. I mean, you know, you're doing the right thing. You're raising a good one, and
Thank you.
I feel
Yeah,
like
I'm
that's
very
our
proud of
job.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially in the early years, because I
Yeah.
was only like 12 when this happened. It's hard for a 12-year-old me to go email all these businesses. And,
Oh,
hey,
yeah.
can we connect all this? So it helps that you work in nonprofit and stuff like that. So it definitely has my name on it. But I always say, like, as much credit as I get, she should get as much because she was the driving force, especially in the early years, because I wasn't able to do all that. But she was able to help, and then be able to use her contacts that she has to get it on the news and stuff like that, and spread awareness for it. So it's definitely, as much as me, it's her for sure.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah,
team
well,
effort.
Caden's original idea was for us to buy the Wii. I was like, well, no, that's kids' hospital
Not that
bill.
funny, yeah.
So what else can we do?
But
But
it's a
it's
good
a lot of
idea.
fun too. I mean, it's doing something for the hospital and the kids, but it is fun. We have a little party at our house,
That's great.
a teddy bear party every year. People bring him and they're like, "This is Charlie, and he's from here, and he likes this." And like, why don't need the backstory? Is he there?
Oh my God, I
People
love
get
it.
really into it.
So let's talk about navigating this. You have celiac disease. You have to go. You're going to go out with family and you're going to go and do a big celebration. What does that look like for you? And have you been able to find restaurants that you can go that actually cater to your needs?
Yeah, so well, we don't really go out to eat now much.
Sometimes
So
it looks like a Coke.
yeah, the family's gotta deal with it. But when we do, it looks something like what we just had like a month ago. We found a restaurant out in Irvine, which story of our lives. We got to go out to Irvine to find
Go to
something we
Angel
can eat.
Games. Yeah.
And that place was like the owner of it actually had celiac disease, and which was
Oh,
crazy. And then we knew like, okay, we're definitely safe. We can go there, do whatever. So in places like that where they know, it's kind of like going to a normal restaurant. You just have to clarify, like, I have celiac, stuff like that. Is this, that, and that good? Because you want to double check. And then they bring it out, and for that it's simple. But for a place that maybe isn't exactly second sign, like a place that we recently just started going to is In-N-Out. Because their fries are made in a separate fryer, which means I can eat it because there's no risk of cross contamination.
oh,
For there, it takes a little more. We kind of have to more give the speech of, hey, I have celiac, allergy, and In-N-Out's actually pretty good with it. Like you can even see on the board, like it shows allergy, and then we can literally hear them yell in the kitchen. allergy, separate thing. Like, so some places like
That's
that where,
cool.
yeah, where there is something, you still have to tell the whole story, but you can get through it. And then there's rare places like the Irvine where it's kind of like going to a normal restaurant, which we really appreciate.
What's
So
the name
so
of
it kind
that
of just depends.
restaurant? What's the name? Give
It's
them some.
Malden's
Yeah.
Bistro in Irvine, and the woman who owns it actually invented her own flour, gluten-free flour. And when they brought the bread out for us to try, I mean, I called 4 times before we went. I spoke to every person who even just brought us water because you become paranoid. Luckily, most people with celiac do develop a certain anxiety, but like I've developed anxiety for Caden, so
Oh,
he's
I bet.
fine.
Yeah.
So they brought the bread out and I tasted it and I was like, oh, there's no way. They must have a real bread one because gluten-free bread is terrible.
Yeah.
And it was so good. I was like, I can't give this to my son. I really need someone else to come out and make sure. They're like, we promise you there's no gluten in our restaurant. It was amazing. I was like, can I take some frozen home? Like they're like, you have to call ahead next time. We want to just like buy it all. It was so good. And they're so accommodating and friendly because Caden does have the other allergies, like the dairy and stuff we had to work with. So Malden's Bistro in Irvine is amazing. There's another place in Yorba Linda called Oceans and Earth. It's an award-winning restaurant that is completely gluten-free. We haven't visited it yet because it's open like for select hours. It's a little fancier. So we're looking forward to trying that. But In-N-Out is a great resource because they don't have gluten-free buns, but they will change their gloves. They'll use a dedicated space to make you a hamburger, like, you know, on lettuce.
Yeah.
And then the fries are especially important to Caden because, you know, you're a teenager, you like fries,
Yep.
but you can watch them do it to their detriment because if they do it wrong, they're done.
That's what happened last
time. I was like, I'm so sorry.
The gloves change.
Because they're really putting their hands on stuff there and they're so busy. But I have to say, In-N-Out as an organization really empowered their employees to understand the allergy, not necessarily celiac maybe, and to be really kind about it and helpful. And we have never had a negative experience with them.
That is so cool. Oh, I love to hear that. That's good to know about In-N-Out. I don't think I would have thought that.
Right. I didn't either. I didn't even believe it at first.
No, you wouldn't think at all because it's just one of those like fast food places, especially. Is everything's happening. There's so much stuff, but it works. Yeah, Chipotle too. Chipotle is really good because you could get a bowl and they wash their hands, but the chips are a little dicey. There's a certain level of where new spoon. It gets tricky, but they're pretty good too.
Yeah. Do you have any fun gluten-free recipes? What's your favorite?
Buy them at the store and cook them.
I didn't really enjoy cooking. I didn't enjoy cooking before Caden developed celiac disease, but I did it and I still do. I make a mean baked potato.
That's true.
Potatoes become your best friend in all forms when you have celiac disease. They're really important. So I don't, but I will say that there is this website called Cats with a K, gluten-free. And they sell the most amazing gluten-free items. You mostly have to keep them frozen, like pretzel bites, an equivalent of a Twinkie, donut. But what's special about them, and we love, because who knows what he's going to become allergic to next, is they're free of all the top allergens. Or you can sort, because some of them might have, like, I guess people are allergic to eggs, so some of them can have like an egg allergy. So there's a sorting feature. And for the most part, that food tastes really good.
It's all the junk food too, so I really love it.
You can eat the junk.
Right? There's like great gluten-free pizza. We use Daya for that because he has to do dairy-free now too. The dairy-free thing really threw my cooking for a loop. That's been a hard thing to get used to. And then every time you introduce something new, so say it's just dairy-free butter, I have to go buy Caden. It's going to naturally be gluten-free, but I have to find out if it's made in a facility where wheat is processed or it's made on a line where wheat is processed. So I have to call because it's not going to stay on there. And then just to be safe, he'll have it say on Monday, and then we'll have to wait 3 days before he tries anything else new. He usually reacts within 24 hours, but we found 3 days is the safest window. Because if he were to try something else the next day and get sick, I wouldn't know which caused it. He's not an immediate reactor. He's more a 12 to 24-hour reactor.
Oh, so you don't even know. And like in that case, sometimes you're guessing. Yeah.
Oh,
you're guessing.
But I'd also take that because I don't want to ever be eating something.
Yeah,
I gotta go immediately. Like I'd rather just like
find out later.
Yeah, like the patience game is hard to play, but I'd much rather have that than I'm with friends or we're outside and then I get sick because that would not be fun.
True.
Yeah, I guess that's true. That my friend's an immediate reactor.
It's my understanding he'll get to your friend's level, unfortunately. No. Yeah, but right now we're still 12 hours.
I hope not. Oh my goodness. Well, good. How can everybody follow your journey? Tell everybody how they like Instagram. Where do you prefer?
Yeah, so Instagram, Caden_Center has all the info. It also is where, we promote the bear drive and my sports broadcast and stuff and all that. So pretty much everything is there.
Yeah.
Cool. I love that. And you've met like every celebrity too. So, yes, every celebrity. I know. And so it's all on your Insta, huh? You can see all that too and all of your
Yeah.
Yep,
your
yeah, and
YouTube
that's
channel and
linked to
all that.
everything.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's so cool. Okay, before we go, I love talking to you guys all the time. I know I'm going to talk to you
Same.
again soon. But what do you think the three big takeaways people listening to this podcast today should leave with?
I'm going to do one if that's okay.
Yeah.
It's advocacy, and whatever you're doing for your parent or your child as a parent, you're doing enough. It's okay if for a while something seems to be missing, you're going to figure it out, but it's just advocacy. There is something to be said for a parent's gut feeling that trumps medical.
Yeah.
And so anytime you have that feeling, anytime you're like, no, I know something's wrong, I can't articulate it, I'm having trouble figuring it out, and to not Google it. I gave so many of my own diagnoses that was not helpful. So I would say advocacy, and if your child is experiencing really weird symptoms that you cannot place, you're having trouble with, it could just be fatigue, it could be migraines, it could be stomach problems. If anyone in your family has celiac, then you would probably be educated on it. But if not, to ask, it's just a simple blood test. It's really not a big deal.
Yeah.
Well, the initial diagnosis is. So I would recommend, if anything in this conversation has sounded familiar to you, like my child just seems sensitive to food, immediately call your doctor, because they're not going to tell you no if you ask.
Right.
What would you
Yeah,
say?
I think on the flip side of that, like if you are a kid, like don't be afraid to speak up about certain symptoms you have, or or as a parent, encourage your kid to do that, because I don't exactly love like expressing I have a high pain tolerance, and I also don't being like, because I don't really want to go to the doctor, it's not
Always
very fun for
hiding
me.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I kind of contributed to the issue a little bit because I didn't. But as I've gotten older and realized, oh, if I just speak up and say something, we're gonna get to the bottom of it. It's gotten better. So I would I highly advise any kid, even if it's an uncomfortable subject, because celiac's not fun, getting sick's not fun.
Yeah.
Still to do it, because that's how it eventually leads and helps. Because if you just kind of keep it to yourself, it's not really gonna get any better.
Right. And I think the third one would be like tolerance and kindness to others. I know not eating gluten became like a trendy thing for a while. So I might have rolled my eyes and been like, okay, and it's school when you can't bring certain things in the classroom because of the other kids. I mean, I was always tolerant of that. I've never wanted to have someone have like a peanut allergy or a situation like that. But it's so, for the most part, it's been good for us. But there are some restaurants where I feel like there's a sigh, and I get it. No one wants to do the extra work. So it's so funny because once you're introduced to it, like my parents and Caden's dad and sibling, all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I get it now. And you're so compassionate to all the autoimmune, where before you might just be like, well, those things aren't my problem.
Yeah, sometimes you just see them in like movies, like the kid that has an allergy or whatever.
Yeah.
That's only how you paint it.
I love when they talk about gluten allergies in movies.
Oh yeah. So once you get like, you become one of those people, if you will, like you realize like, okay, this is X, Y, and Z, and you got to navigate it.
Yeah.
Kindness. Yeah, that definitely. Patience, kindness. I love that. Oh, you guys are so awesome. Thank you so much for sharing with
thank you for having us. Yeah, we're excited.
So happy to have you. I think we're like 9 months into doing this podcast now, and it's been so informative. I love learning a little more every day. I've learned a lot today. So thank you again for sharing your story. And hopefully we could come back and maybe we can talk about when you're doing the drive. When is that? What like month is that?
Yeah, we started about November.
Yeah,
November. And then we have our usual like teddy bear party thing in December.
Yeah, we'd love to come back.
We deliver the bears the week, I think it's before Christmas. Now we don't do it.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of local businesses who participate. We get so much community support.
Love it.
Yeah, you don't have to come to our house to drop.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, wait, are we driving to your house?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I love to hear that, and we'll definitely talk more about that in the coming months. Thank you guys. Have a wonderful day and stay safe. And I will tell everybody to be patient. If you hear somebody with an allergy.
Perfect.
Thank you.